Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're looking at a really pivotal time in American history, the Great Depression in the 1930s.
Right. A period of immense hardship.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about the economy collapsing, was it? It seems like it really changed the fabric of American life, how people lived, what they felt.
That's absolutely right. I mean,
Yeah.
the scale of poverty, the unemployment, it forced some massive shifts in society. You see it in where people lived, how they survived, even the art they created.
So that's what we wanted to dig into today. Understand those lasting cultural ripples.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's jump right in. When people think of the Depression visually, often these sort of makeshift towns come to mind. Shanty towns or
Hoovervilles.
Hoovervilles, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine suddenly having no job and then maybe weeks or months later losing your home because you can't pay the rent or the mortgage.
It was devastating.
Totally. So people had nowhere else to go. They started building these, well, shelters, really, using whatever they could find, scrap lumber, tin, cardboard, bits of junk.
And these little clusters of shacks sprang up often on the edges of cities, in empty lots, wherever they could find space.
And calling them Hoovervilles. That tells you something, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It was a direct and pretty bitter jab at President Hoover. People blamed him, or at least his administration's policies, for not doing enough to help. It really shows the public anger.
Yeah, it puts a human face on the blame game, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
not just statistics. It's people living in these really basic conditions.
Exactly. And survival wasn't just about shelter, of course. Hunger was just rampant. Which brings us to soup kitchens and bread lines.
Right, another defining image of the era. These were basically emergency food services.
Pretty much.
Mm.
With so many people out of work, millions couldn't afford to buy food. Simple as that. So charities, churches, sometimes local governments stepped in.
And they'd set up places to just hand out food.
Yeah, they'd offer maybe a simple meal, often soup, because it was cheap and could feed many, or hand out loaves of bread, hence soup kitchens and bread lines.
You just picture these long lines, people waiting patiently, maybe for hours, just for that basic sustenance.
It's a stark image, isn't it? It really highlights how the economic system had just failed so many. And it showed the importance of community aid, but also the sheer scale of the desperation. It was everywhere.
Then there's this whole other story happening, this massive migration, particularly tied to the Dust Bowl, the Okies and Route 66. Can you unpack that for us?
Sure. So the term Okies initially referred to people from Oklahoma, but it kind of broadened. It came to mean families, mostly farming families, who were fleeing the Dust Bowl region.
Which included more than just Oklahoma, right?
Oh, yeah. Parts of Kansas, Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arkansas. It's a huge area in the Great Plains. They were hit by a double whammy. Severe drought and, well, years of farming practices that hadn't been sustainable.
So the land just gave out.
Literally turned to dust. Massive dust storms, black blizzards would sweep across the plains, burying farms, homes, killing livestock. You couldn't farm, you couldn't live there.
Unimaginable.
Huh.
So they had to leave.
They had no choice. They lost their farms, their livelihoods, so they packed up whatever they could fit into old cars or trucks and headed west, mostly towards California.
And Route 66 was the main path.
It became the primary artery, yeah. The famous Route 66. It symbolized hope for these families, this chance for work, a new start in places like California's agricultural valleys.
But the reality wasn't always that hopeful picture, was it?
No, not at all. When they got to California, they were often met with suspicion, discrimination. They were seen as outsiders, a burden. The work they found, usually picking crops, was incredibly hard. The pay was terrible, and conditions were often exploitative.
So they escaped one disaster only to face another kind of hardship.
In many ways, yes. It's a story of incredible resilience, but also profound struggle and disappointment for many.
It really makes you think. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to how all this turmoil was reflected in art and culture. We see this term realism come up a lot regarding the Depression era. What was that about?
Well, realism in art and literature during this time was really about trying to portray life as it actually was, especially the difficult parts. No sugarcoating.
So instead of idealized images, it was about showing the grit.
Exactly. Artists, writers, photographers felt a sort of responsibility, I think, to document the harsh realities people were facing, the poverty, the unemployment, the daily struggles, but also, importantly, the resilience and dignity of ordinary people coping with it all.
Can you give an example, something that really captures that spirit?
Oh, definitely. The photographs commissioned by the Farm Security Administration, the FSA. Think of Dorothea Lange.
Yes. Migrant mother.
That's the one, probably the most famous image from the era. That photo of Florence Owens Thompson, her worried expression, her children huddled around her.
Yeah.
It's just raw. It encapsulates the anxiety, the poverty, but also this incredible maternal strength. It's pure realism.
It's unforgettable. It makes you feel the era, doesn't it?
It really does. But, alongside this harsh realism, there was also a really strong pull towards the opposite, towards escapism.
Which makes sense, right? If reality is that grim, you'd want an escape.
Absolutely. People desperately needed a break, some temporary relief from the constant worry and hardship. Entertainment became a crucial outlet for that.
So what forms did this escapism take? Movies.
Movies were huge. Hollywood, even during the Depression, was churning out films. Lots of glamorous musicals with spectacular dance numbers, screwball comedies with witty dialogue, films with happy endings where everything worked out okay.
A total contrast to daily life.
Completely. It was a chance to forget your troubles for a couple of hours, dream a little. Radio was massive, too.
Right, the whole family gathering around the radio.
Exactly. Listening to adventure serials like The Lone Ranger or mystery shows like The Shadow, these stories offered excitement, fantasy, a different world. Hollywood and radio really provided that mental escape hatch for millions.
It's interesting how those two impulses, facing reality and escaping it, existed side by side. Now, speaking of voices capturing the time, we have to talk about Woody Guthrie.
Oh, absolutely. Woody Guthrie. He was kind of the quintessential folk voice of the Depression era, especially for the common working person, the migrants.
His music wasn't escapist at all then.
No, quite the opposite. He was a realist, but in musical form. His songs were directly about the struggles people were enduring. He traveled the country, lived among migrant workers, experienced the Dust Bowl firsthand.
And that came through in his songs.
Directly, songs like his Dust Bowl blues, ballads, they tell stories of losing farms, of the dust storms, of the hard journey west, and maybe his most famous, "This land is your land."
Which sounds patriotic, but has a deeper layer.
Right. It has verses, often left out now, that question inequality, that talk about seeing people hungry while others have plenty. His music gave voice to the sorrow, the anger, but also the resilience and the sense of shared humanity among those struggling. People felt heard.
He really connected with the experience of ordinary people. And then in literature, there's the towering example, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath.
Yeah, published in 1939, right towards the end of the decade. It's arguably the novel of the Great Depression. It crystallized so many of the things we've been talking about.
It's fiction, but based heavily on reality.
Very much so. Steinbeck spent time with migrant families, researched their conditions extensively. The novel tells the story of the Jerd family, Okies, driven from their Oklahoma farm by drought and the banks.
And their journey on Route 66.
Exactly. It chronicles their difficult journey west to California, searching for work, dignity, and it depicts, very powerfully, the prejudice, the exploitation, the near-starvation conditions they face when they get there. It's realism at its most impactful, I'd say.
So it wasn't just telling a story, it was making a statement.
Absolutely. It shone a national spotlight on the plight of these migrant workers. It humanized them, generated empathy, and sparked a huge amount of debate. It became this defining cultural artifact of the era, showing the human cost.
It sounds like it did for literature what Dorothy Allen's photos did visually.
That's a great comparison, yeah. Both captured the suffering, but also the endurance of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming hardship.
So looking back, it's clear the Great Depression wasn't just an economic event. Its cultural footprint is huge.
It really is. You see these fundamental changes driven by hardship. Living conditions transform shantytowns, reliance on soup kitchens, massive internal migration reshaping communities, like the Okies moving west.
And a real shift in arts and expression, too.
Definitely. This tension between stark realism showing things as they were and escapism needing that relief through movies and radio. Plus, the emergence of powerful voices in music and literature like Guthrie and Steinbeck documenting and protesting the struggles.
It feels like it forged a different kind of American identity, perhaps. One marked by shared struggle, resilience, maybe a different view of community and government.
I think so. It left this indelible mark on the national psyche, the memory of that hardship, the importance of sticking together, the debates about social safety nets. A lot of that has roots in the Depression experience. It's a legacy we still live with.
Truly. It shows how profoundly economic crises can reshape culture.
Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's leave our listeners with a few questions to ponder, reflecting on what we've discussed.
Good idea. First off, Can you really picture the living conditions, the Hoovervilles, the bread lines that defined daily life for so many Americans during the Depression?
And think about the Dust Bowl. How did that environmental disaster specifically trigger that huge migration west? And what did being labeled an Okie really mean for those families?
Also, consider that duality we talked about. What specific roles did realism and escapism play in the art and entertainment people consumed? Why were both seemingly necessary?
And how did figures like Woody Guthrie and John Steinbeck use their art, music, and writing to capture and comment on what was happening socially and economically?
And maybe the biggest question to reflect on. What lasting cultural legacies or changes in American values and attitudes do you think trace back to the experiences of the Great Depression? Thinking about community, government, resilience, how does that era still echo today?